lots to dive into. So let's start with thing one on the tariffs ruling. So in case you were under a rock today and you missed this, there was an historic 6-3 decision that came down this morning. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the tariff tax increases that were imposed by the executive branch under emergency powers of President Trump are unconstitutional. And the ruling reaffirms that the power to tax is exclusively reserved to the legislative branch, meaning that Congress could do it, but the president couldn't do it on his own. Part of that ruling, it was a 170-page opinion with several concurrences. And in part of that, the court basically said, the Constitution specifies that it is Congress that has the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. And they recognize the unique importance of this taxing power to impose tariffs to that of Congress, not for the executive branch alone to do. If you're on social media, you may have seen some of President Trump's posts to Truth Social, including one today that said, "The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing. I'm ashamed of certain members of the court for not having the courage," he said, "to do what is right for our country." Then he went on to thank and congratulate Justices Alito, Kavanaugh for their strength, wisdom, love of country, which he says is has every. This is Trump saying every American is proud of you at this point. So now tariffs have been something that have even divided conservatives and Trump supporters. Not everybody's been happy about this, and many suggested if the court had allowed, this unilateral tariff power for the executive branch to stand, nothing was in the way to prevent a future president from declaring something like maybe a climate emergency to impose tariff tax increases. So lots of division on this, even among Republicans. And earlier today, I met with GOP State Chair Jim Walsh of Aberdeen for his take on the ruling, which he told me didn't really come as a surprise.
The Supreme Court ruling was not surprising. I think they made a legitimate point. If you're going to use tariffs as a trade tool, you need to use them not in a broad stroke way, but in each decision, each tariff policy point made specifically to an industry, to a trading partner on a much more narrowly tailored basis. And I imagine that's what the administration will do going forward. The real issue is that there's going to be a fiscal effect. The federal government was benefiting from proceeds from these broadly applied tariffs, and they're going to have to take that into account, that now they're not going to be getting some of those dollars in, at least not at the same timeline that they were originally.
And then I pressed Representative Walsh a little bit further for his take on what the impact is going to be to a very trade-dependent state like Washington. And of course, all the big tech sector that we have here, they've made clear that the tariffs were hurting them. A lot of the retail sector has been very loudly complaining about the tariffs and the harm to their industry. So here's his take on the impacts for Washington state trade and the tech sector.
The administration still can apply more narrowly tailored tariffs to specific circumstances and may do that right quick. But I think in general, this will be perceived as something that the Washington business community likes, both tech industry and the transportation trade organizations that operate out of our ports and other places. I think they will probably like this ruling.
I'm going to be publishing an article later today on Friday the 20th for some further reaction on the SCOTUS decision about Trump's tariffs. Got some responses from the Washington Council on International Trade. They thought it was a step in the right direction. A little bit of a different take from the National Federation of Independent Business and the state director here in Washington, who said, basically, wherever you come down on this, we're more focused now on what the pending millionaires tax here in Washington state could do to business going forward. So a lot more on that. You'll be able to see that article linked today at thecentersquare.com/Washington. So lots more reaction coming in on that throughout the day today.